Shriman, His Divine Grace of High Chanala, ISKCON, BBD Founder Charya, Save the Whole World, Giant to Vishnu Hari Brajakacharya, Astotara Shri Shrimad, His Divine Grace of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki, Nalacharya Shavarya Thakur Ki, Jansagaro Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Gaurabhakta Ki, Shri Radha Krishna Govinda Shankar Radha Kamki Govinda Ki, Braj Bhumi Shri Vrindavan Dama Ki, Navit Mayapur Dama Ki, Krishnam Chetra Jahanpuri Dama Ki, Ganga Mai Ki, Jamuna Mai Ki, Bhakti Devi Ki, Ulasi Maharaj Ki, Samaveta Bhakti Devi Ki, Jai Nitai Go Premanandi, all glories to His glory, all glories to His glory, all glories to His glory, all glories, all glories, let us be the Shri Guru, Shri Guru, all the glories to Shri Prabhupada Ki. Is that recording this? Oh, okay. Leave the kids alone then. Bruce?
Yeah,
it's okay. It was the kids, don't worry. I thought it was recording. So it's wonderful to be here again. So, 2 years since I was here last. That's okay. I put the water on this water. Yeah. It was very encouraging to see the children leading the kirtans. It was nice that Grandpa was leading the junior prayers. When I was in Auckland, it was Nrsimha, and they asked me to take care of the children's abhishek, which was a lot of fun. And that's okay. And there was 3 kids that were there who were really good. They just stayed there the whole time they were helping. And I was thinking, actually, I could have given them more to do. But it's really nice to see that the children actually have an interest in Krishna consciousness, because this will help to shape their future. This will help to purify their hearts, and hopefully, through the association of their devotee parents, they'll develop an attachment to Krishna, and in this way they'll become fixed in the process of devotional service, so that when they get older, especially in their teen years, they'll really take the process of devotional service very seriously. Because this is what really decides it for children, is when they get to their teen years, when they hit that 13, 14, 15, because then the senses start to take over. And if they have a good founding in devotional service, then this gives them the best possibility to pursue Krishna consciousness. But the thing is, it's not something you can force. You can't force a child to be devoted to Krishna. They have to want to do it. And the best way of getting them to want to do it is that they see your example. They see how you are, enthusiastic about the process of devotional service. Just making rules and regulations. I remember when I was a child, my parents were always so pushy. You have to go to church, you have to go to Sunday school, you have to do this, But they didn't set the same example themselves, so that didn't really work very well for us. So, and Prabhupada, he talks about it in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, when he's in that purport, verse where he says that because he had the example, because his father was a pure devotee, and because of the love his father had for him, this also inspired him in his devotional path. And then when he came into contact with his spiritual master, then this just naturally awoke in that bhakti that was there in the heart. Because it's there in the heart of all living entities. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sada Kavadaya, Shavadana Karavadaya. This love is there in the heart of all living entities. It just needs to be kindled, it just needs to be watered. Just like you put a seed into the ground. If you don't put water, nothing will happen. But that seed of love of Godhead is there in the heart of every living entity. Even the animals, they have the seed of love of Godhead in the heart. But it just requires the right kind of stimulation to make that blossom. So if we look after children well, and if we set a good example for them, a good example doesn't mean waving the finger and telling you have to chant Hare Krishna. I remember I was talking with some ex-Gurukulis years ago, and they told me that when they were at Gurukul, that if they ever did anything wrong, they were punished. You know what their punishment was? Chant one round. So what do they see the chanting Hare Krishna as now? Punishment. Not very intelligent. Not very intelligent at all, because therefore they actually have a natural aversion to chanting Hare Krishna. So just by this kind of, because everything we do impresses the young mind. The young minds are very impressionable, and they soak up everything. So if we set a good example of Krishna consciousness to them, and with love, if we encourage them, then there's every chance they'll turn out and be devotees. No guarantee. No guarantee of that. Don't ever think, it's a guarantee, because I'll give you a very good example. Advaita Acharya had how many sons? Who knows how many sons he had? 10? No. 6. There's 6 sons. One of his sons was a Chutananda. I can't remember all the sons there, but 3 of them were pure devotees. 3 of them were atheistic. So even Advaita Acharya, he has atheistic children. So, but don't be disturbed because if your children don't turn out to be pure devotees. Not every child is going to be Prahlad Maharaj. Even though we'd all like to think that our children are great pure devotees, it doesn't work out like that. I want to read from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. from Madhya chapter 22, text 128. This is a nice verse. This is Lord Chaitanya speaking. Sadhu Sangha Nama Kirtan Bhagavat Shravan Mathura Vasa Srimati Shari Sevan. One should associate with devotees, chant the holy name of the Lord, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, reside in Mathura, and worship the deity with faith and veneration. So this is, Lord Chaitanya is instructing Sanatana Goswami, I believe, in Sanatana or Rupa. One or two, I think it's Sanatana. No, it'd be Rupa Goswami. No, sorry, Rupa Goswami's chapters 18 and 19, I think, so it'd be Sanatana Goswami. And he's listing the 64 items of devotional service. And these are the last 5 items he adds. And then he goes on to say, these 5 limbs of devotional service are the best of all. Even the slight performance of these 5 awakens love for Krishna. So you see, Sadhu Sangha Nama Kirtan Bhagavat Shravan Mathura Vasa Srimati Shari Sevan. So Sadhu Sangha means to associate with devotees. And how do we associate with devotees? We just hang out with each other, we talk for jalpa, is that the Sadhu Sangha? No, Rupa Goswami, in his nectar instruction, he's given the Dante Pratigrinanti, Guya Makati Prajiti, Bhakti Bhoja Cheva, Sadvidin Priti Lakshmi. The 6 exchanges of love between one devotee and another. The Dante Pratigrinanti, to give gifts and to receive gifts. Guya Makati Prajiti. To guha means like a secret, a cave. So guya means secretly or confidentially. To inquire confidentially and reveal one's mind in confidence. There's actually a loving exchange between devotees. There's this confidential discussions. Not that someone tells you something that's been troubling them for years and years and years, their deep dark secret, and the next day it's on Facebook. That's not a loving exchange. That's like sharing the juicy gossip kind of thing, That's not the way to exchange, to have loving exchange between one devotee and another. But to actually, when someone reveals something to you, to appreciate the confidence, respect that devotee, and so not to share it with the whole universe. And then, Bhakti Bhojate Chaiva. Bhakti Bhojate, to give prasad and to receive prasad. There's also a loving exchange between devotees. It's this taking prasad together, serving each other. There's also, and they said, Sadvidin Kriti Lakshana. These are symptoms. Lakshana means a symptom. These are symptoms of love between one devotee and another. And this is how we associate with devotees. And so he's saying here that these performance of these 5 limbs is the best of all. Of all the 64 items of devotional service, these are the best. So then we have Sadhu Sangha, Nama Kirtan. So Nama Kirtan, obviously Prabhu was leading this nice Kirtan before, and Bharani was leading the Shingai prayers. To chant the holy name congregationally. Of course we chant japa on our mala, but also we chant congregationally. And this Samkirtan, Sam means complete. So this complete kirtan, when we do this call response method of chanting, this is a very, very effective way of propagating the holy name, but also not just propagating the holy name, but also awakening the love of Krishna within our hearts, because by chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we destroy the false bodily concept of life. We overcome this illusion thinking of the body, and we come to the point of understanding who we are. We're Krishna's eternal servants. So, Prabhupada in purple here talks about the 64 items of worship. Then, I'll read a little bit from the end of the purple. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Sri Rupa Goswami states, the glorification of these 5 items associated with devotees, chanting the holy name, and so on, is to make known the complete superiority of these 5 practices of devotional service. The 64 items of devotional service include all activities of the body, mind, and senses. Thus, the 64 items engage one in devotional service in all respects. So this is a really important understanding, is that by practicing these 64 items of service, then we're fully engaged in serving Krishna. Then he goes on. With love and full faith, one should worship the lotus feet of the deity. So this is a very important point, that love and full faith. What does full faith mean? It means we accept that the deity is Krishna. Not that the deity is a statue, the deity is representation. The deity is directly Krishna. There's a nice story in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that Nityananda Prabhu tells to Mahaprabhu about the deity of Sakshi Gopal. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that story. But we see, like, the essence of that story is that, you know, two brahmanas were traveling, young brahmana, older brahmana. The young brahmana is looking after the older brahmana. Quite traditional in India to see a young man take care of an elderly man, help him on his way, etc. And so the older man was very, he felt very indebted to this young brahmana, so he wanted to offer him a benediction. He said, I want to do something for you. The young brahmana said, no, you don't have to, don't worry about it. He said, no, I feel like I need to, so I want to give you my daughter in marriage. And the young brahmana thought, well, you know, that's okay, you can say this here now, but what will the family think? Then he promised in front of the deity. So he went in front of Gopal deity and he made the promise. Then, to cut a long story short, when sometime later the young brahmana came, or the old man, he returned to the village. The young brahmana went there to claim the girl's hand, and the family objected. And so they were going back and forth, and you know, there was some conversation going on. And then the young brahmana said, look, if the deity comes as a witness, will you accept that this is what your father said? And they said, of course, no problem, because all the village was there. The son of the older brahmana was an atheist. He didn't really believe that he was, you know, it was Krishna or anything like that. So then the young brahman, he went back to Vrindavan and he went to see Gopal. He said, my dear Lord Gopal, your devotee, this elderly brahman, and he made a promise in front of you. And I'm requesting you to prove the word of your devotee. And so then Gopal responded to him, and they were having a conversation. And at one point, the young brahman, he asked Gopal to come and be a witness. And then Gopal, he responded, very interesting way, he said, but I'm a deity, I can't walk. And then the young brahman, he said, if you can talk, you can walk. So let's talk. And the point, the real point, one of the main points of this story for me is that because this young brahman had the faith, because he said to the deity, he says, Pratimana Hikumi Sakshat Jandananda. He says, my dear Lord, you're not a statue. You're directly the son of Nanda Maharaj, Krishna. So you can prove the words of your devotee. So this is the point. He had this faith that the deity is directly Krishna. He wasn't in any doubt about the identity of the deity. And the same is there for us. If we develop this kind of faith, that we accept that the deity is directly Krishna, then we can get great benefit from the process of deity worship. So I wanted to sort of just establish the authenticity of deity worship first before we talk about the second part, or the second topic. Because we see, like, you know, especially in Vaishnava Shastras, you'll see there's a lot of emphasis given to deity worship. And it's actually an essential part of the process. And the verse I read just then is from the Madhya Lila, chapter 22. It's describing how it's one of the most 5 potent processes of worship. And even if one has no faith, if you're simply a little bit connected with one of these things, there's actually a verse later on, I'll see if I can find it for you. It's quite an amazing verse. Where is it?
Next one. Immediate next one.
I think it's later. The power of these 5 principles is very wonderful and difficult to understand. It's interesting, Lord Chaitanya is saying, they're so powerful, it's difficult to understand. Yeah? Even without faith in them. It means if you have no faith, a person who is offenseless can awaken his dormant love of Krishna simply by being a little connected with him. So it's a very important understanding. It is the nature of the process of bhakti is so powerful that even if you don't believe it, it still will have its effect. Just like when we go on we have Rath Yatra, and we do kirtan, etc., but also devotees are distributing prasad. Yeah? So we see that people, the cart is going down the street, the kirtan is going down the street, people are hearing the whole holy name. Their hearts are becoming purified. Yeah? They're getting Krishna prasad, they're taking Krishna prasad, their hearts are becoming purified. And this dormant love for Krishna, because as I said before, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem Sala Kavaca Shavana Shuddha Karuna. This dormant love for Krishna is in the heart of every living entity. Why? Because the living entity says, Jivera Sarupa Hoy Krishna Nityadas, Krishna Tatasta Shakti Veda Veda Prakash. The nature of the living entity, every single living entity, is by nature an eternal servant of Krishna. So it's an easy thing, it's to awaken this love of Krishna because it's there in the heart. And it's just like I was making before, this point of watering the seed. If we water the seed that's there in the heart through the hearing process, then it will sprout and it will grow and it will bloom eventually into a beautiful flower. So the hearing process is the essential aspect of causing the seed to flourish. But also we see the Lord has given 5 different processes which are very powerful. And one can be connected with any of them, even just a little bit connected with any of them, and will have its effect. It will help us to rekindle this lost loving relationship with Krishna. But in particular, today I've been asked to speak about deity worship, and in particular, worship of the deity of the temple. And of course, I'm sure many of you have deities at home, and this is wonderful and definitely worth encouraging. We also see how here, for instance, in what's it called, Newlands, there's a temple of Sri Sri Gauratai, and there's also Shalagram Shila and Giriraj there. And even though there is no difference, there is a difference. Shinta Beta Beta Tattva, simultaneously one but different. Yes, it is the same Lord, the same Lord Chaitanya, it's the same Krishna and Shalagram, etc. But there is a difference. Because when we do deity worship at home, who gets the benefit? The family. The people who live in the house, they get the benefit. But when we have the deity in the temple, who gets the benefit? Yeah. So many people, thousands of people get the benefit. And of course the deity is potent, the Lord is very potent, and anyone who lives near where the Lord's being worshipped, as I mentioned, I think, is within 9 miles of a Shalagram, where there's a Shalagram Shila being worshipped. Anyone who lives within a 9-mile radius of that gets the benefit of that deity being. Even if you have no faith, a little bit of connection, it's quite extraordinary. But when you worship the deity in the temple, not only are the devotees doing the worship that benefit, but everyone who comes there, everyone who sees the deity, everyone who brings a gift for the deity, everyone who has any connection with the deity will be benefited. Another interesting example you can give is just like every day there's fruit offered to the deity. So let's take an apple for instance. Okay, we offer it, we carve an apple, we offer to Krishna. So there's so many people, so many living entities that get benefit from that. The tree where that apple grew gets benefit because the fruit of its life is being offered to Krishna. The person who grew the tree and who watered the tree and who pruned the tree gets benefit. The person who harvests the fruit gets benefit. The person who brings the fruit to the market, the person who sells the fruit at the market, the person who buys the fruit, the person who brings the fruit and offers it to the deity, everyone gets benefit from that. So the thing is, when we're doing temple worship, you're expanding the benefit, you're expanding the influence of the Krishna consciousness movement to many, many people. But also another aspect of the temple worship is because it's a very important way of building community as well. You'll see that, for instance, There's an interesting lecture. I was talking about this lecture today. We had a deity worship class up at Ambarish Maharaj Prabhu's house. And we were talking about this lecture when Prabhupada installed Rukmini Dwarkanath in Los Angeles in 1969. And then Prabhupada, when he gave this lecture, he was encouraging the devotees that every day when you come to the temple, you should bring something. You should never come to a great personality without a gift. You know, so when you're coming to see the deity, you should bring something, even if it's just a piece of fruit. And I remember speaking to one of the devotees years ago who was a pujari in Los Angeles at the time. And they said they had there used to be a large brass bowl in front of the deities. And every day the bowl would fill up with fruits and flowers and all sorts of things, you know. So the devotees would bring things for Krishna. So this is, you know, because like if we all have our own deities, we all stay at home and worship our deities, it's quite separated, you know. We're in our own little sort of, I guess you call it our little cell, if you like, you know, a silo, I think they use the word silo these days. You know. We're all in our own little confined space, our own little environment. And definitely there's great benefit in that for us. But if we're focusing on worshipping the deity in the temple, then what happens is we're coming together, we're chanting the holy name together, which is some kirtan. It means complete kirtan. We can, of course, we can do kirtan, we can do japa. These things are extremely beneficial. There's no end to it. You know, there's no limit to how beneficial they are. But when we chant the holy name together, the benefit is much greater. And of course, the loud chanting of Krishna's holy name. Thakur Haridasi makes this point. Lord Chaitanya asked him, is it better to chant the holy name quietly or loudly? And he said both are beneficial, but the most beneficial is when we chant the holy name loudly, because even the unconscious living entities, they hear the holy name and they get benefit. You know, so when we come together, we have kirtan. Even all the microbes floating in the air, they get benefit from the kirtan. You know? And you know, so coming together as a community and doing different community activities together, you know, are based around the service of the deity, are very, very beneficial for everyone. And you know, through this process, we can also build a community. Also, we see that Prabhupada put a lot of emphasis on festivals, you know, such as Gorkani, Janmashtami, Radhastami, all these different festivals. Because these festivals also, it's the same thing. We would get a group of devotees coming, working cooperatively together. This is something that's very important also, is working cooperatively. Prabhupada, he mentioned this to the devotees in one of his final instructions. He says, your love for me will be shown by how much you cooperate together to push on this movement. Because that's, you know, really what we're trying to do. It's not about some personal agenda. It's not trying to establish ourselves in a position or, you know, be glorified or whatever. The real purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement is to deliver the fallen conditioned souls back to Krishna. Because we're all servants of Krishna. Every living entity is a servant of Krishna. Jivera Swarupa Krishna Nrsimha. We're all servants of Krishna. The problem is most of us have forgotten that. So the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement. And Prabhupada sometimes, he would say there's a purport, where, I think it's in the beginning of, not purport, it's an introduction. Might be the Gita, but I don't think it is. I think it's one of the other books. Where Prabhupada talks about this Krishna consciousness movement is meant to deliver the entire world back to the Lotus Feet Lord. He says, nay, the universe. So Prabhupada wanted to deliver every living entity back to Krishna. And this is our goal, is to deliver all living entities to the Lotus Feet of the Supreme Personality. Because this is the only position they'll be satisfied. It's just like when a child is separated from his mother or from his father, the child becomes disturbed. And the only way you can actually to make the child peaceful is to reunite the child with the parents. I had an experience of that when I was a child. I don't know if they do the same here in New Zealand, but when I was in Australia, they had these agricultural shows where all the farmers, they bring their things, you know, and they you know, show their pumpkins and their sheep and their cows and stuff like that, and their milk and whatever. At the agricultural show, they all get judged. And then what they do from that is in each capital city, because in Australia apparently there's 7 or 8 states, and in each state there's a capital city. So I live in Victoria, so the capital city of Victoria is Melbourne. And so then all the country shows, their champions would come to Melbourne and exhibit their wares in Melbourne and they get awards. And so it's a big thing. And there's hundreds of thousands of people go to these things. And what happened was I got separated from my parents. And it's like this huge, big event, you know, and I'm just like, you know, no mobile phones or anything like that in those days. It was just like, you know, I was just lost. And so, and I started to cry. What happened was that someone found me, and in these places they have like a temporary police station. So they took me to the police station. I'm crying, and I'm so distraught because I'm separated from my mummy. And then the police lady, she went and got me some ice cream. She started feeding me. I'm still crying when I'm eating the ice cream. Finally, they managed to find my parents because they put an announcement out on the loudspeakers. You know, so and so, you know, this young boy, he's lost and his parents, if you come and clean him, you know, probably because they want to get rid of the crying child. Anyway, so you know, it didn't matter what the police did for me. I wasn't satisfied. I wasn't happy, even though, you know, okay, I'll eat the ice cream and stuff, but I was still crying. But as soon as I was reunited with my parents, I became peaceful. And that's the condition of every living in this material world. In this material world, we're all disturbed, we're all agitated. And nothing you do in this material world will actually satisfy you. Prabhupada gives the analogy of like a fish out of water. You can give a fish out of water so many facilities for sense gratification, but it will never be satisfied. Why? It belongs in the water. It can't breathe unless it's in the water. As long as it's on the land, it's going to be gasping for air because it can't breathe. And that's our situation in this material world, is because we're separated from our natural condition. We're separated from Krishna. Because, as I said, Jivera Sarupavai, Krishna and Nityadas. Krishna and Nitasta Shakti Veda Veda. Because we're marginal energy of Krishna, a manifestation simultaneously one but different from the Lord. Therefore, our position is to serve Him. So, until the living entity becomes restored to that original pure identity, they'll never be satisfied in this material world. And the process of Krishna consciousness is simply for that purpose, is to reunite the living entity with their original condition as a servant of Krishna. So, when we come together and we work cooperatively to spread the glories of Krishna, then this is the most effective thing we can do. As human beings, the most effective way of spreading Krishna consciousness is to work cooperatively to spread the glories of Krishna. And deity worship presents a wonderful opportunity for that, because we all come to the temple, we chant kirtan, we glorify the Lord, we participate in festivals, we glorify the pastimes of the Lord, and we glorify the Lord's associates, and also we invite others to come. Because also, like, when we have festivals, there's extra endeavour to decorate the temple, to decorate the deities, dress the deities, to decorate the altar, to make nice food offerings, to have dramas, and, depicting the pastimes of Krishna. And there's all these different events going on. And people are attracted by these things. They're attracted by the beauty of the decoration. They're attracted by the cultural aspect, with kirtans and with dramas and plays and whatever you have. There's all these different things which people find attractive. It can be intellectually stimulating for people, so they learn about the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And in this way, we're exposing more and more people to the process of bhakti, and in this way, we're propagating the same kind of mission. So, yeah, it is definitely beneficial for you to do deity worship at home, but if we come together and we work cooperatively, then many, many more people will benefit. But you'll also benefit. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, before he passed away, he was encouraging his disciples to push on this Krishna consciousness. He said, they will benefit greatly and you will benefit greatly. So by engaging in Krishna consciousness, especially in a cooperative manner with other devotees, then you'll find that Krishna consciousness will spread very rapidly. Because we're putting aside our own kind of false ego, we're putting aside this idea of trying to be whatever, and we're just working cooperatively to please Krishna, to glorify Krishna. Because this is actually the intrinsic duty or the position of the living entity, is simply to serve and glorify the Supreme Person of Godhead. And this is when we actually become satisfied in life, is when we're using our existence for the glorification of Krishna. And I noticed on the back there, there's a few tulsi plants in bags. And she's the perfect example of a living entity who's given their existence for the glorification of Krishna. Everything she does is simply about serving Krishna. Her body is simply for serving Krishna. Her leaves and manjaris are offered to the lotus feet of the Lord. She's given her existence to the pleasure of Krishna. And that should be our aspiration also, is that we give our existence for the pleasure of Krishna. And in this way, we'll actually become satisfied, we'll actually become peaceful in life. But as long as we're trying to further our own selfish goals, and the selfish goal can just mean something simple about what I personally want for myself. It doesn't necessarily mean something necessarily vindictive or nasty or anything like that. But it just means like if our focus is on ourselves, that is selfish. If our focus is on Krishna, just like you see the difference between a brahmana and a kripana. A kripana means one who's very miserly. So miserliness means that your existence is focused around me. I'm just doing whatever I can for myself. And you look at the material society, generally speaking, 99.9% of people in the material world are just focusing on satisfying themselves, or their extended self means their family, their friends, their country, whatever. It's all just about that. But a brahmana is liberal-minded. A brahmana acts for the welfare of others. That's their only purpose, to act for the welfare of others. This is called what we call it, paropakara, the supreme welfare activity. You give your life for the benefit of others. So this is what the Krishna consciousness movement is for, is to sacrifice our life for the welfare of others. And we see that Srila Prabhupada was such a wonderful example of that, sacrificing his life for the welfare of others. He traveled extensively, and he gave so many classes, and he would rise early in the morning, like 2 o'clock in the morning, he'd be up even earlier sometimes, translating Srimad Bhagavatam, translating Bhagavad Gita, translating Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nectar Devotion, Nectar Instruction. So many books Prabhupada translated. Why? Because he wanted to become known as a great author. So you get his name up in lights and you get some, what's the prize they give for people when they write books? Pulitzer Prize? Was his ambition was to get the Pulitzer Prize or a Nobel Peace Prize or something? No interest whatsoever in those things. His only interest was for the welfare of others. That's the devotee. For the welfare of others, we act in so many different ways. So, by coming together and serving the deity in the temple together, then you will benefit yourself greatly, but you'll also benefit so many others. And this is the purpose of this Krishna consciousness movement. Questions? Huh? Oh no, but I don't have much more to say. Third class for the day. Any questions or comments at all?
I have a question.
Yeah. Say it in a loudish voice. Oh, you got a microphone? Wow, that's great.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Very nice and insightful lecture. Thank you so much. I've got a couple of questions actually. Am I allowed to ask a couple of questions?
Yeah, one at a time, I'll answer.
Sure, one at a time. First question was, you just mentioned, Prabhuji, that ideally we should be giving our whole existence to serve Krishna.
Yeah.
And it just resonates with me so much. But then the question is, how can we possibly do that when we are so much entangled into, serving our families and doing our mundane duties? How do we translate that, putting our existence to serve Krishna? How can we possibly achieve that? Do we have to give up everything? Which is not an idealistic thing, I guess, but what is your comment on that, Prabhuji?
But do you think that giving up everything would be pleasing to Krishna?
No, I don't think so.
Because if you gave up everything, what would your family think?
My family would not like it.
No, but not only that, but they think these devotees, they're irresponsible. Because, see, sometimes what happens is when people come to the Krishna consciousness movement, They hear this talk of renunciation all the time, but they don't really understand what renunciation means. It doesn't mean you give things up. It means you give up this false sense of proprietorship, because you're not the proprietor. Who's the proprietor? Krishna. So this is renunciation. It means you give up this idea that I'm the controller, I'm the enjoyer, and understand that Krishna is the supreme proprietor. Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. And Krishna is your only friend. This is renunciation. This whole idea of coming to ISKCON, oh, I have to give up everything and go live in the forest. No, that's just a wrong idea. And in terms of how can you give your life to Krishna, it's actually very easy. Krishna explains that in the 9th chapter of the Gita. He says, Yat Kuroshi, Yadasasi, Yat Juhoshi, Yadashya, Yat Pashashi Kuntaya, Tat Kurushamadapana. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, whatever austerities you perform, you do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. Then he says, Subha Subha Hare Eva Moksha Kamabana, Sannyasa Yoga Vimukno Vimukno Vimukno. In this way, with your mind fixed on me, this principle of renunciation. This is renunciation. You're not changing what you're doing at all. You're just changing who you're doing it for. Because what's happening is we're doing everything for our satisfaction. Even we're raising our children for our satisfaction. We're going to work for our satisfaction. You're saying, no, do this is Yat Kuroshi. Whatever you do, Kuroshi means do. Yeah? So whatever it is you're doing, do that for me. That's renunciation. And he says, with your mind fixed on me, the principle of renunciation, you will be liberated and thus you will come to me. He's not saying, you know, because Arjuna is saying, well, I'm going to give up this fighting and go live in the forest. And Krishna tells him he's a fool. He tells him, no, you fight for my pleasure. You know? You kill all these people for my pleasure. That's renunciation, he said, and this way you'll become a sannyasi. So the idea is that whatever you're doing, you do that for Krishna. And also the advantage of doing that is when you do these things for Krishna, you'll be more conscious of what you're doing to try and do the best you possibly can. Just like, you know, you might be working, you might have a job somewhere. So you, instead of working for the paycheck, which is what most people are doing, or working for the boss or whatever, do it for Krishna's pleasure. So then you'll find that'll change how you focus on your work, how you apply yourself to your work, because you're doing it for Krishna. You're not doing it for the boss, you're not doing it for the paycheck. You want to please Krishna with that activity. Then also the way you interact with your co-workers, if you're doing that for Krishna, you'll interact with them differently. And so everything you do, if you do that as a service for Krishna, you'll change the way you do it. So you can see actually, it doesn't matter, you have children, you have a job, you have a house. See it as service. Don't see it as my, you know, my karma or my material enjoyment, whatever. See it as service to Krishna. And then you'll change the way you do it, you'll also change your consciousness, and you'll also change your overall perspective on things, because you become peaceful, because everything you're doing is for Krishna. It's not about, you know, Prabhupada would sometimes say that everything in this material world is zero. It's just nothing. And if you take everything, you say these tall you call them skyscraper buildings, and you know, and big jumbo jets, all these things, and he said, you take them all, they're just zeros. And if you add all these things up, how many zeros? Millions and millions of zeros. You add them all up together, what do they equal? Zero. So there's a big zero. This whole material world is a big zero. But if you take one, Krishna, and you put that in front, what do you have? A very big number. So that's the point. You just do everything for the pleasure of Krishna. You put him in the forefront of everything, then everything becomes perfect. Okay? Second question.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. That's really insightful. My second question was, being a normal, like, we are the devotees who cannot always serve at the temple. So when we are serving deities at our place, at our home, what should be the mood while we are serving the deity? What should come to our mind while we are serving our deities at home, Prabhuji? Because temple deity worship is different. I do not have a proper deity at the moment, but hopefully one day. But whatever I've got at my home altar, what should I be thinking while serving them?
Gopipata Patakama Dasa Dasa Aradasa. I'm your servant. You are my master. That's it. And you don't need to have deities at home. Prabhupada actually discouraged his disciples from having deities. He encouraged them to have picture altars. Because he wanted everyone to come together and serve at the temple. Because, you know, just as we see Lord Chaitanya has given Rupa Goswami these Sanatana Goswami, these 5 most important principles. The first one is Sadhusanga. So very important, because when we come to the temple, we serve the deities in the temple, we're associating with devotees. So don't worry so much. Okay, if you have deities at home, they're fine. Continue to look after them. But if you don't have deities, just have a picture of them. Guru, Garanga, or Radha Krishna, whatever. But that's all you need at home, because you need somewhere. You need some way of offering your food. You can do a simple arati every day, and you can have some kirtan and chant japa at home. Yeah? So it's good to have that center in the household. As soon as you have deities, like 3-dimensional deities, it brings up so much obligation of service. You have to bathe the deities every day. Oftentimes we see that there's been this myth propagated in ISKCON that we bathe the deities, once a week or once a fortnight. How often do we bathe? Every day, at least once a day. Why? Because that's socham, that's purity. Krishna is setting the example of purity. He teaches us how to interact, And he said that if I did not act properly, if I did not follow the rules and regulations, the whole world would be cast into ruination. So how do we justify only bathing the deity once a day, or once a week, or once a fortnight? Changing his clothes. I mean, I couldn't imagine wearing these clothes for more than a day. I'd start to smell myself. Even like when you travel around, there's so many gross smells, but if I didn't bathe every day and change the fresh clothes every day, it would be too much. And we see also Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, one of our prominent acharyas in the Gaudiya Vaishnava line. He's written a song we sing every single day, the 3rd verse. Sri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana. What does Nitya mean?
Every day.
It's daily or always. Shringara Tan Mandira Marjanada. So Shringara means dressing, Tan, all these other things. Mandira Marjana, cleaning the temple, every single day. Prabhupada says this is deity worship, daily. So if you have the facility to take this on, then you worship fine. But generally you'll find that most of us have busy lives. And to take on, daily deity worship will be quite challenging. So better is rather, if you have deities, as I said, look after them. But if you don't have deities, you don't need deities. Just serve the deities at the temple. Even if you're not Brahmin, there's so many services you can do. You can make garlands, you can clean paraphernalia, you can clean the bajari room, you can help make festival preparations, you can chop up vegetables for the offerings, you can wash the paraphernalia afterwards. So many things you can do. But Prabhupada wanted devotees to come together to serve the deities in the temple. That was his aspiration. And we are Prabhupada Anugas, so we follow what Prabhupada wanted. Just follow what Prabhupada wanted. Okay? Number 3?
Okay, number 3.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Last one is, as you said in the beginning of your lecture, that we cannot force our children or family member to come into Krishna consciousness, which is entirely sensible. But like you said, everyone is actually servant of Krishna by a very fundamental, on a very fundamental basis. So if we want some of our family members to come closer to Krishna, serving prasadam is one which we have heard from senior devotees here. What else could we do, Prabhuji, to bring them more and more closer to Krishna by just setting the right example? Or?
I think the best thing you can do is by setting a good example as a devotee. I remember when I first came into contact with ISKCON, I used to try to convince my mother about my father died when I was young, so I wasn't there. But I used to try to convince my mother about the importance of devotional service and how she should take it and stuff like that. But that didn't work because I was always her baby, it was like her child. And mothers generally can't take it from the children so well, you know. They're the ones who give us direction, not we give them direction. But then, not long before she died, she said, actually, you're the only one of my children who worked out any good. So, you know, because I gave up trying to preach to her, and I just tried to be a good son. So it had its impact. So in the same way, with us, if we can just try to set a good example as a devotee, don't have to be preaching to them, because the thing is, like, in the beginning of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraja says example is better than precept. So the precept, you can tell them how to do this and tell them how to do that, but if you don't live that example yourself, it's just empty words. So if you set an ideal example of the practice of bhakti, and your friends and relatives, they see that, and they find, even in your workplace, you know, if they see, wow, they're such a nice person, I wonder why they like that, they'll start to ask you questions. They may start to ask you questions about, you know, what you believe in, what you like with, you know. And I find that when I travel all the time, there's so many experiences where people are asking, people have interaction with us, you never get angry. Why? Because they get, I mean, not that they just get worked up over the smallest of things. And so it gives you this opportunity to introduce them to Krishna consciousness. When I travel, except when I go to the Middle East or to communist countries, I dress like this. You know, wherever I travel around the world, I'm dressed like this. And invariably someone will ask me, oh, are you some kind of religious person or something? They always ask. You know, so everything, because, see, because we're Gaudiya Vaishnavas, people look at us. People look at us and we're representing Srila Prabhupada. So they should, you know, because by our behavior, they should be able to see us as a good representative of Srila Prabhupada, because they will judge the movement on each one of us. You know, if we act badly, they'll think, oh, these Hare Krishnas are all like that. And if we act in an ideal way, they may be interested to find out more about us. So, and also the thing is, you're familiar with a devotee called Vaisheshika Prabhu?
Yes.
He's a very nice devotee. He's got his podcasts and stuff like that. I encourage you to listen to his teachings. But one of the things he says, which I find very interesting, is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You can lead a man to knowledge, but you can't make him think. So the point is, it's like, even though your children may be exposed to Krishna consciousness, if it doesn't touch their heart, they're not going to make any movement towards it. So somehow or other we have to touch their heart. And that's one of the things you'll see with a devotee like Nrsimha. One thing I've really been impressed with him over the years is that he touches people's hearts. And this is what devotional service is about, is transformation. If we are not transforming ourselves, we're not doing it right. Study of the scriptures is about transforming the heart. So if you're not bringing about a transformation of the heart, you're not doing it right. You're missing something. And if we're unable to transform others, and Prabhupada said, like if people, he said if people are not developing a taste for hearing, this is the fault of the preachers, because they're not able to make this transformation. So the process of bhakti is about transformation. So by your example, you'll transform the hearts of your children. By wagging your finger at them, that won't work. Never does. Okay? Hope that answers your questions.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much for the wonderful lecture. So my question is, are all the deities, we have different deities like God, Deity and Radha Krishna are same? And if yes, then why if I get attracted to some deities more than others?
The deities in one sense are the same, but they're not. It's again this philosophy of Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva. This philosophy pervades our entire philosophy. You know that you're familiar with this term? So it means simultaneously and inconceivably one but different. You know? Just like we have Gaunitai deities all around the world. Right? Yes, it's the same personality, but it's not. They are different. They have different personalities, and they manifest in so many different places, and they have relationships with devotees. And so, yes, in the transcendental sense, it's all the same personality. But we see that different deities, they appear to be different, they're fed differently, they have different pastimes, they've interacted with their devotees, you know, and so they are different. They're different personalities, but they're the same personality. A little bit hard to conceive sometimes. But this is the transcendental nature, because we're used to the material nature, you know. You're different from the lady sitting next to you, even though you look, you know, you've got eyes, you've got ears, you've got a nose, and all that sort of stuff. But you're different, even though you look, you know, the bodies look similar. You know, you're a human being, you're a human being. Yeah? But you are different. So in the same way, Krishna, he manifests himself in different ways. And why you are attracted to one deity more than another? It's because of your nature. Just like we have, you know, you can have, what, we've got maybe 70, 80 people in this room. Everyone here is individual. Everyone has different likes and dislikes. Who likes guavas here, for instance? Anyone like guavas? Okay, one word. I can't stand them. But it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you because you like guavas. I just don't like them. But every time I eat them, they make me burp, and I can't get rid of the taste in my mouth, and it's like, it just doesn't work for me. So we all have our individual nature. We all have our likes and dislikes. And you'll find that just like, you know, why is one person attracted to one person as a spiritual master and not another person? Hopefully that attraction is based on spiritual principles, not on, well, I like the way they chant the Sanskrit verses, or I like the way they wear their dhoti, or something material like that. Which would be a spiritual attraction, but again, it gets down to the individual nature. It's like, you know, I don't know if you're married or not, but why did you marry this person and not that person? They're all men. You know, it's based on their nature, your nature, the chemistry, it works. So it's the same, you know, Krishna is a person. Lord Chaitanya is a person, Lord Chaitanya is a person. You know, I mean, I have my attractions in deities, and you know, you have your, you know, it's just because of our nature. Sometimes it's the way that the deities are served. We find that very attractive. You go to Mayapur, the way the deities are served in Mayapur is just, you know, amazing. But you know, you go to another temple, it's very simple the way the deities are served. But some people are attracted here, some people are attracted there. Nothing wrong with it, it's perfectly normal. But just the main thing is to be attracted to Krishna and give up the attraction to the material energy. And the more you become attracted to Krishna, the more your attraction to the material energy will diminish. And that's why it's really good to participate in the festivals, and just not just the festival, but the program at the temple. Because through engaging in devotional service along with other devotees, you'll find your attraction will grow more and more. Especially, you know, if we're able to participate, obviously we participate in these things with devotees who are like-minded, but also if we can participate in these events with devotees who are more advanced than ourselves, you'll find that this will be very, very helpful. Because this is one of the things with Sadhu Sangha, is through Sadhu Sangha we engage in, what's the word I'm looking for? We gain inspiration from that association. We see the way senior Vaishnavas associate. We hear the Shastra from senior Vaishnavas. We hear the Kirtans of the senior Vaishnavas, and then we gain great inspiration from that. So, you know, the process of bhakti will work in any situation, but it's far more effective in the association of devotees. Just like you all gathered here for this program. Why don't you just do this at home? It works, but because we're not, so, I mean, if we were completely off the body platform and completely purified, it wouldn't matter. Whether it's on our own or with hundreds of devotees, it wouldn't matter. But because we're not, because we're not so advanced in devotional service, therefore the association of Vaishnavas is very, very powerful for us. But even you see, greatly advanced devotees like Srila Prabhupada, he was still relish the association with his brothers. So, you know, all the aspects of devotional service are more effective when they're practiced in the association of advanced devotees. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Very nice session, and you explained very well about the benefits of the temple worship. This question is from Premadatta Prabhu. So he wants me to ask you about if someone is worshipping the deities at home, and in their next generation, there is no one who is willing to do the deity worship. So what should they do with the deities? Like when they pass away, what should happen?
Yeah. I was actually reading some references from Prabhupada today, and he was talking about how we should, because you were asking me, I think, yesterday about taking the deities to programs and stuff like that. And so this exact point Prabhupada was addressing, and he was saying that once established that the deity can never be moved. So therefore we have to think very, very carefully about establishing worship, because it's a very serious thing. Because we're trying to establish a relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? We're saying, my dear sir, if you come here, I will take care of you. I will make sure your worship, you're cared for from now on. So in the same, in a family environment, that also needs to be our contemplation. It's not just, okay, well I want a deity, therefore I'm going to have this one, I'm going to have this one, I'm going to have this big altar, but there's no thought of the future. Yeah. Deity worship, Nrsimha mentions that there's different ways of establishing deity. One is permanent, one is temporary. Yeah? And so those who establish a deity temporarily, they generally do it with some material motive, material desire. They want to get something from the person they're worshipping, some material benefit. But Vaishnavas, following in the line from our acharyas, we establish the deity permanently for the pleasure of the Lord. So even you're contemplating having a deity at home, then you also need to contemplate whether your children will be willing to take it up. And if you think they're not going to do it, then I would suggest not establishing a deity. There's an interesting temple. Does everyone know where, not the ISKCON Radhashamas from the temple, but the Goswami Radhashamas from the temple is in Vrindavan? Yeah, so it's just like, anyhow, I won't explain it, it's not that part of what it goes on. And so there's a laneway that goes down between two buildings that is the entranceway to the Radhashamas. So just across the other side of that laneway, there's a house. I remember years ago, Vina Bandhu, who were taking us there, and he was explaining that the deities in that house have been worshipped there for 400 years. Yeah? So just generation after generation after generation, the devotees have just taken on that worship. That's deity worship. It means commitment. It's not just something you do for a week or two and then give it up. It's not like, it's quite a common thing with, around Christmas time, that, like a few days after Christmas or a few weeks after Christmas, the dog pound, all the dog pounds and things like that, there's so many puppies are handed in. Because what happens is the parents, they'll give the child a dog for Christmas, and then they realise, they're not going to take care of it, so they take the dog to the pound, and then they euthanize the dog. So they don't properly think through the consequences. How's this going to happen? So it's the same when you do deity worship. Actually, more important when you do deity worship is, if I'm going to establish this deity in my family, then what's the likelihood that this deity will be cared for? Something to consider. Now, if you don't have children, or if your children aren't inclined, then it's probably a good idea to try to find someone who will take on that worship. Because you can't just, drop them off at the local op shop or something and hope someone will take them up. Take them to the deity orphanage. It's Vaishnavas, they install the deity to establish a permanent relationship. So this is really important to understand it. This is why, generally speaking, I do discourage devotees from having deities at home. But that said, it's like if they have the proper situation and they're able to make the proper commitments, and there's a likelihood their children will also follow through, then okay, good. But don't just establish the deity and then not have any, potential of that worship being continued in the future. It's not the thing is, we're not dealing with dolls. It's like, in Western countries, they tend to give young girls dolls to play with. It's not like that. The deity is directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Try to understand who it is we're dealing with. We're not dealing with some statue or whatever. We're dealing with God directly. And if we can understand that, then you'll see that the way we interact with the deity will be very, very different. So many times you see devotees having frivolous conversations in front of the deities, speaking prajalpa or whatever in front of the deities. But we're directly in front of God. How can we talk like that? How can we talk about things that have no meaning? Even on the altar. In the service I have, I've come across so many unusual things over the years, which just tells me that the devotee hasn't understood who God is. For them it's more of a concept than a reality. But the reality is that He is our Lord, He is our Master. He, as He says, Aham Savasya Bhavo Matasam Vatate Itimat Matma Vijante Buddha Vilasma. That I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. So just reflect on that for a moment. This one person, everything has come from his body. The whole material universe has come from his body. Isn't that pretty amazing? Just not just this one universe, but the countless millions of universes. Just like you see a spider, right? A spider produces a web out of its body. Right? Can you imagine one spider producing all the webs in creation? How much energy that would require? But as Krishna says, he says that, we see in the Ishopanishad, I think it's Om Purnama Daha Purnamadam Purnamadashte Purnashapadavadaya Purnamev Vishishyate. That everything, he is complete. Purna. Om Purnam Adaha, he's perfect and complete. And everything that emanates from him is also perfect and complete. He doesn't make any mistakes. Like no one's recalling any of his creations. Like sometimes when they make cars and something's wrong with the car, they have to recall them all so the airbag doesn't blow up in your face and rip half your head off. And have you ever heard of one of Krishna's creations being recalled to the factory to be fixed? But it doesn't happen because it's perfect, it's complete. We really need to understand who it is we're interacting with here. It's not just some statue that represents Krishna. If you accept the process of bhakti, if you accept the process that's given by acharyas, if you accept that the deity is directly God, then you'll do it very differently. And this is what we need to do. We need to cultivate this awareness, how the deity is directly God. And if you cultivate that awareness, as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects. So if we understand properly who it is we're dealing with, how to deal with him, then we'll get the benefit of that. But if we don't, then the benefit's going to be restricted. Deity worship has all the capacity to deliver you back off the Godhead. It's very easy to do, but you have to do it properly. Prabhupada, he talks about Achan Siddhi. There's a letter he wrote to one of his later disciples. He talks about Achan Siddhi. And he said Achan Siddhi means you achieve perfection in deity worship. And if you achieve perfection, if you achieve this Achan Siddhi in this life, at the end of this life, you go back to the spiritual world. Which is really interesting because if you look at where Prabhupada talks about this in other places, he said like, you achieve perfection here, at the end of this life, you go somewhere else in the material world where the Lord's performing his pastimes to finalize your perfection. But if you achieve Achan Siddhi, you go directly to the spiritual world. You don't go somewhere else in the universe. Why? Because you're already engaged in Krishna's pastimes. The deity is described as 5 incarnations of Krishna. There's Pada, there's Vyuha, there's Vaibhav, there's Vilas, and there's Archa. So the Archa Murti is one of the incarnations of Krishna. So if you're engaged in deity seva and you perfect yourself in deity seva, you're directly engaged in Krishna's pastimes. So try to understand who it is you're dealing with. You're not dealing with a statue, you're not dealing with some representation or whatever. you're dealing directly with God. And try and understand who God is. You know, and you'll see like the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, very important this understanding. Because this is talking about the opulence of the Absolute. We're talking about how, even the verse from the Bhagavatam today, how Jad Bharat was explained from Maharaj Rahugana, who Krishna is. He has no flaw, he has no fault. We have to understand, everything we deal with is, in this material world, is contaminated, and there's some kind of fault in it. You know? And Krishna says that in the Gita, that every endeavor in this material world is covered by some kind of fault. Just like the fire is covered by smoke, the mirror is covered by dust, and the embryo is covered by the womb. Everything's covered by fault in this material world. Krishna is not like that. He has no fault, he has no flaw. And everything comes from him. Anything else? Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. This is just a reflection, no questions for me. No questions, it's just a reflection. The last, the Bhagavatam class we came, or today's class as well, we learned a lot about deity worship. So we learned a lot about deity worship. So thank you so much for your time, and it's a lot of insights, and hope we can implement some of them.
Yeah. The main thing is to try to understand who it is who's standing on the altar in front of us. Of course we see the material construct of the deity, that's there. But see, one way you can reflect on it is to understand why Krishna comes as a deity. Because look at our limitations, right? Can we see spirit with our material senses? Can we interact with spirit with our material senses? We can't. So out of compassion, out of the sense of mercy upon us, the fallen conditioned souls, Krishna comes to accept our service through this so-called material form. He's only doing it for our benefit. So when we reflect on that, how Krishna is doing this for our benefit, it really should inspire this sense of gratitude and this sense of I want to serve him because he's come to give me that chance so I can connect with the transcendental being, because you can't do it with mundane senses. So that's an important understanding. Okay, thank you very much. Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Bhakti ki jai, Jai Gaur Premanandi.